I'm reminded a lot today, and I'm aware of time, so I'll push through as quickly as possible, that things have changed quite dramatically since I've been involved in this industry, and nothing's kind of struck me more than listening to Justin. I've got to tell you, Justin, back in my day in ad agencies, when people pushed their desks together, it wasn't mind sex they were thinking about. Okay. Right. Never mind the quality, feel the width. I mean, some of you, let's see. Some of you, yeah, well, there are not too many of you that look like you would actually remember this TV show in the 60s was a Freudian slip. Don't know where that came from. It was a great show. It was about two guys of contrasting cultures. It was Manny Cohen and I think Tony O'Brien struggling to make a living, cutting corners here and there. And they were constantly being advised, depending on their persuasion, by kind of Rabbi Levy or Father O'Toole, depending on the circumstance which their shortcutting got themselves into. And they were always given this kind of unpopular advice. So I'm pretty sure today I'm going to be giving you some relatively unpopular kind of comment and advice, and just trust me because I'm in media. I just thought this show about cutting corners and surviving in tough times was a wonderful metaphor for the circumstance we find ourselves in today. It is tough. You've got media owners and agencies struggling to carve out an existence. You've got marketers like yourself sitting there answering to a bottom line that half the time is created by a marketing director who thinks that Africa is actually Cyprus. And you've got and whatever profits you make are going to be repatriated to pay for somebody else's bottom line. So it's a tough, tough time. But in all of this, I think one of my concerns is that media somehow has allowed itself to be so commoditized that the value has been extracted. And Oscar Wilde was the guy who is attributed with the comment that there are people in life who know the price of everything and the value of nothing. And I'd spent a lot of time working with clients and with agencies and media owners for that matter. And I've been involved in a number of pitches during the course of the last couple of years where I've managed the pitch process. And it's the intervention of procurement that I think is one of the most interesting things. And unless you actually start to engage with procurement, I can assure you, if you give a procurement guy the choice of saving 100 Rand on a box of staplers or paper clips, or kind of 50 Rand on media and marketing, he's going to take the 100 Rand, unless we collectively can actually persuade them of the value of what it is that we do for a living. That's why I'm so excited that IMM is back on track and that people like yourselves are engaging. So let's just unpick this kind of concern with the price of everything and the value of nothing. I mean, at the end of the day, where do we begin the process? Well, you've got to begin the process, with the objectives, perhaps the learnings from the previous kind of campaign, the consumers themselves, obviously, and at the center of this process sits the brand. So the starting point for me to a large degree in media is this. And I understand KPIs. You put me on a return on media investment program, so I've got to come up with a discount. In fact, you incentivize me against the amount of money I save on your campaigns. And sometimes in doing that, you put me in a position where I fail to answer the fundamental question. And the fundamental question, if the brand is at the center of this thing, is this one. Can the problem be solved by advertising? There's a clipping from the taxi industry talking about a campaign which they're going to engage in to change or to improve the image of the taxi industry. So let me pose you the question right now. Do you think, as you sit right here, that the taxi industry in South Africa has an image problem? Yes or no? Those in favor, yes? Those who say no. It's 100% of you saying yes. Interestingly enough, of course, the taxi industry does not have an image problem. An image problem exists where you believe one thing about me which is incongruent with what I really am. If you think I'm a bad guy and I'm actually a good guy, I have an image problem. They do not have an image problem. They have a problem. Okay? Every time I see that, You might just want to saunter over to the guy on the stretcher and say, what is your, what's your perception of the taxi industry? It is a real problem. You see, I've learned a lot of things in media, and one of the things I've learned is this. Never, at any circumstance, particularly if you're dealing with a first-time mother, you should never tell a mother that she has an ugly baby. This is a very, very dangerous thing to do. It's a life-shortening gesture. And yet, strangely enough, in almost 40 years in media, I've never, ever had a client who came to me and said, I have an ugly client. I think it's the ears, they just like stick out too much. The first step in bringing media back on track, not just isolating the cost and saying how much have you saved it, is to pose the question, do you actually need to run an advertising campaign? Is media central to the offering itself? I mean, it is one thing, if you're trapped in the middle of the desert, thirsting for water, it is indeed admirable thing to score a deal, a 25% discount on a packet of dried dates, but it doesn't really answer your problem. There's no point in getting a 25% discount in a Sunday newspaper or a 30% discount on a TV station when in actual fact what you should be doing is fiddling around on Mix-It. The discount is not what the value is. You've got to take it back to strategy, and it's strategy and the thought process that should drive media selection. You can blame it on Ross Rees if you want. He's the guy that invented the concept of actually what he called front-of-mind awareness, not top-of-mind awareness. We've kind of watered that one down a little bit. And it was based on a premise. If you go back to his book, Reality in Advertising, it was based on a fundamental premise in the 50s that there was actually a difference in the product. And if you played around with the product, you would find the difference, and then you could just communicate that to as many people as possible. So they did things back in the day, Bates, on the USP strategy front. They invented things like torture tunnels. When last have you ever heard of a torture tunnel? They laid carpets down in shopping malls and people walked over them and they measured the wear and tear. They started doing things like slamming fridge doors and car doors, etc., etc. All these things were done to establish a bona fide, a point of difference for a brand which you could then communicate. So once we agree that a Land Rover is a Land Rover, I mean, I've got photographs of friends wearing T-shirts saying, I would rather be pushing my Land Rover than driving your Toyota. Okay? It was a brand with a unique pedigree and a unique point of difference which could be communicated. And so we went into this kind of phase which I call media critical mass. Now, I don't quite know what it is, but late in life I decided that if I started reading quantum physics, I might get a better grasp of life in general and myself in particular. I have failed spectacularly at both, but there are some really groovy concepts in quantum physics which kind of, I think, really apply to media. Now, you'll recognize that as a black hole, one of those massive concentrations of dense mass from which nothing can escape, including light, stars, planets, whatever. And to a really large degree, I think for the last 30 years, we've seen media in the same kind of light. So on the left-hand axis, you've got exposure over time via a medium. Let's call it television. Across the bottom, advertising investment. And because we thought, wow, there's a genuine point of difference, a USP for this product, all I have to do is pump it out there until it gets to what I call the media event horizon. Now, the event horizon is the point at which things do disappear into a black hole, and irretrievably, they just don't come out. And I just wonder how many advertising campaigns are sitting on this kind of event horizon. You pump them out, you measure the number of viewers, you measure the discount, and actually at the end of the day, you don't quite know where they go. They just seem to disappear. And because we said, no, it's all about the USP, it's all about this brand communicated to as many people, we somehow got ourselves onto a 30-year cycle where we said, it's all about the number of people I can reach. Reach was the big thing. And you get companies like Procter & Gamble who've evolved entire thought processes around cascading reach. I'll talk a bit about that later. Building the reach at the right kind of level. Reach, 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 reach. That was what it was all about. And as a consequence of that, because we were obsessed with counting heads, we came up with all sorts of really sexy definitions. So that is the definition. So that's the definition of listenership. Listen to a radio station, part of it, maybe somewhere yours, somewhere else's. sober, pissed, whatever the case may be. That's why they're called opportunities to hear. I'm concerned about a lot of you as clients. You love something that I call the X factor. I know how to make you happy. I get a spreadsheet. I make an X in the top left-hand corner cell. I cut, copy, and then I just paste. And the more X's you get, you love it. That's the best thing in the world to give clients, lots of X's on a spreadsheet. TV viewership. Now, I as a male, like all males, have an awesome cosmic responsibility. I know that when I'm watching television, if I leave the room at a critical moment, something will happen. So I have to be very cautious about how I do this. A catch will be taken, a goal will be scored. And so when I leave the room at a critical point, I have got a setup at home. It's kind of a mirror. And when I go to the place that must be gone to when you're watching rugby and you put your hand in the place where the special things are kept, I have to watch the mirror just so I don't miss what's happened. And so this is the thing. In terms of the definition we use, I'm still a viewer. I'm watching your commercial backwards without sound, and you're still paying for me. It's wonderful. I know why media owners like it. More readers, more listeners, more viewers, the more you pay. I just don't understand why you guys keep on buying it.